Good afternoon, everybody. In Cyprus, as you know, we have a fast-growing community of tech companies, international investors, and highly skilled individuals who have chosen Cyprus as their home base. And while we are excited by the momentum in the tech sector, we are equally aware of the structural limitations that could jeopardize this progress, including the capacity of our private education system. Access to a high-quality, internationally oriented education for their children is one of the top priorities for the professionals and entrepreneurs we are attracting. These individuals don't relocate alone. According to a recent technical survey conducted in collaboration with IMR, nearly 60% of highly skilled individuals moving to Cyprus bring their children, with an average 2 children per employee. In just 4 years, between 2020 and 2024, from a sample of only 50 companies, more than 2,600 children arrived with their parents. This has placed tremendous pressure on an already stretched private school system. And this is only the beginning. Our projections show that 68% of international companies plan to relocate an average of 50 new employees per company over the next 5 years. This means thousands more children will soon need seats in schools that are already full. At TechIsland, we've been working closely with the government and other stakeholders to address this challenge. From building permits and operational barriers to teacher recruitment and investment incentives, we are looking at every level we can pull to help scale the system. In this panel, we will explore what actions are already underway, what policy shifts are still needed, and how we can work together to build the education infrastructure. Cyprus needs to remain globally competitive. Mr. Minister, the recently announced incentive plan for private schools marks a significant policy shift. Can you walk us through the key provisions? What specific outcomes do you hope to see within the next 12 months, and how will success be measured?
Yes, thank you. Good morning, everyone. First of all, allow me to thank you for the invitation and congratulate you for this interesting and amazing, not only this panel, but all the panels that TechIsland is organizing today. As you already mentioned, education is really important. It's actually one of the, if I can say that, prohibitive factors in attracting companies for indirect investment in Cyprus. One is housing and the other is schooling. In an effort to, because of the fact that licensing permits for schools, whether we like it or not, whether as a government we try to expedite the procedures, we try to fast-track the procedures, still it takes lots of times. We need to construct new roads, new infrastructure. It takes time and effort. Through conversation, especially with TechIsland and other stakeholders, we came up with the idea of, and this is a scheme that we passed mid-March, nearly 2 months ago, through the Council of Ministers, whereby existing schools, this is for existing schools, they can increase their capacity by up to 25%. It's from 10 to 25%. For example, if a building coefficient, for example, if an existing school has 1,000 square meters of buildable area, they can increase it by 250 meters. So it varies from 10% to 25%, depending on where it's located on the urban planning. But equally important is the fact that land usually is needed for the facilities that are by law required for schools. So to tackle that issue as well, in consultation with the Ministry of Education, we agreed to reduce by 25% the infrastructure required, for example, football fields, basketball fields, this kind of infrastructure, which takes up expensive land. So we're reducing that by 25%. And on top of that, the amount of money needed, because usually when we grant coefficient, it's not for free. It used to be for other schemes 50% of the actual cost. We reduce it to 20% of the actual cost, and that amount goes for affordable housing. On top of that, depending on the permit, they can also require to reduce the number of parking spaces. We even thought about that. So I think the reasoning behind the scheme is it's a fast way to increase capacity. Instead of building new schools that takes 2, 3, 4 years for permits for existing schools, to increase within a year their capacity by 25% through these incentives. And if a permit is submitted with all the requirements, it won't take, our promise is that it won't take for up to more than 4 months to be approved. Mm-hmm. So far, we have interest from 6 different applications for this. Overall, we have about 20 applications pending for new or improvements in existing schools.
Very good. I must say that the licensing department of the Ministry of Education, they are very helpful. And they have done very well in the past 1 or 2 years when the demand has increased, and it was good news. Ms. Marochkina, as someone who went through the process of opening a school, which of the government's current or proposed incentives do you believe will make the biggest difference in practice? Where do you still see gaps, if any?
Hello, everyone. I would like to thank you, TechIsland, for this opportunity to take part in this panel, first of all, and organizers of all the event. It's my big honor to be between the highly ranked people in the panel from the government and the educational area. And following your question, I could say that yes, the process for the obtaining license for the new school or kindergarten, let's say educational institution, it's quite tough, and it takes and requires a lot of time and effort. I can see that for the last 2 years, when we are in this process, we faced a lot of changes for the best, that I can admit 100%. Yep. The government now, especially from the last year, is trying to develop this situation and assist for newcomers in the educational area. From the main incentives which we have now, I believe the most important and the one which can really release hands of the investors who would like to build new schools, it's a possibility to construct schools in the restricted zones. So we need to have those zones for development to be allowed for constructions of educational institutions. Because a lot of these institutions, they would like to be centralized in special areas, which are unfortunately currently are not allowed. The other very important incentive is, which also has been announced, and I believe that our government is hardly working in this way, and we are all expecting when it will be implemented, and we have already announced procedure, it's speed up procedure for the permits obtaining. Mm-hmm. I know that the initial thoughts were to help investors with 25 million and above to have permits secured within like 1 year through the specially dedicated project manager from the government. I believe that this will be implemented, and it really can help to have one window work in this direction. Also, there are a lot of things which have been done from the side of EOA. Still, they need to work on some of the special procedures which have to be done. But from our side, I can really say thank you to the Limassol department, because they try efficiently to organize the work. They dedicate a lot of time to particularly our case, and I see that there are a lot of improvement in this direction. Of course, there are some things which needs really deep improvement, and I think we need a lot of light from the government in the direction of financial and tax regulations for the educational system. What do I mean is that, for example, now all the educational institutions they are have burden of VAT, meaning that constructors, the investors who is investing in the construction of the educational institutions, unfortunately, they cannot recover this VAT during the process after. And people are investing millions in the construction because they try to develop and build really innovative new schools, and this money they cannot be recovered, which is not honestly in comparison with other businesses existing in the market. The other very important thing which I would like to emphasize is, of course, talent and workflow. I mean, teachers and special educational and administration personnel for the schools. It's not easy to bring people who can work from abroad in these areas. And of course, last but not least, is the most important thing, it's centralized all the procedure, because now we are like in a nice orchestra where all musicians are playing different music on different instruments. We do not have one procedure to follow, and a lot of things we face is that from different departments in government there are procedures which are overlapping or even contradicting. We are going to the fire department, there are some rules. After we're facing that electromechanical department is contradicting with some of these rules. So I believe it could be very important to have either digitalized or centralized procedure which can help the investors just to follow it step by step and make very easy the process. Thank you.
Okay. Were you on time to utilize some of these incentives that have been...
Yes, some of the incentives I already have been aware because of visiting some previous events, and the minister was announcing some of them, and I know that they really hardly working in this direction, yes. I know that there are some lobbying in the direction of VAT processes, so I really hope that we will be heard.
That will come. Alexis, from your experience as an international school operator, which incentives are most impactful in encouraging further investment? How does Cyprus compare to other countries you operate in?
Hi. I would focus in two areas. The first one has to do with the facilities, starting from identifying suitable land and streamline procedures for the relevant licenses. I'm talking about the town planning permits, building permits, and eventually the final permit, because as per the legislation, this is also required. So any incentive related to getting license in a fast track, if I may say so, this is a very good incentive, because we need to take into consideration that international organizations who are interested in investing in Cyprus and establishing new schools, they have the financial ability, okay? So what they're looking for is to identify the right place, get the relevant licenses, and eventually anything related to the capital expenditure required, any way of reducing their cost is also very important. As mentioned before, the VAT, for example, although yes, I think this is something that is going to be discussed later on, but it's good to mention it again, so we support the discussion. This is very important. Now, the other element I want to mention is, again, it was mentioned by Liudmila, has to do with recruiting the suitable staff. International schools, they are interested in international educators. Basically, we're looking for the right people, experienced people who are English native teachers, because the majority of the schools here in Cyprus, they use English as the language of instruction. So getting work permits, it's very important. Now, the other thing that is linked to that is the requirements of the law having to do with the qualifications of these people, because sometimes we can easily identify good educators, but because they don't have this, they don't meet this requirement of having qualification, a first degree in the subject they are going to teach that is equal and corresponding. So let me say it in Greek. This is what we call isotymia και αντιστοιχεία, so equal and corresponding. I understand why it is in the legislation, possibly to cover public schools. But when it comes to international schools, we deliver international curricula like A-levels or the IB or any other program. So we shouldn't expect people coming from other countries to have the qualifications that are equal and corresponding to what the University of Cyprus or the public universities in Cyprus and Greek they offer. So this has to change also. So any incentive related to these two issues, I think it makes life easier and it's going to attract investors from abroad.
Very good, thank you. Mr. Papadopoulos, schools, hospitals, and museums do not charge VAT to consumers. Yet, when investors build school facilities, they face a heavy VAT burden up front, especially when leasing to an operator. What policy reforms would you propose to support investments in educational infrastructure? Could a VAT reduction or exemption be considered for these types of developments? And from what you have heard also from the other two speakers, they mention VAT issue a major obstacle.
Well, good morning. Thank you for the invitation. Can I start the other way around by stating first the obvious, that the tech sector is the driving force of the Cypriot economy today. And what is even more impressive is that from the figures we've seen before, and this sector grew from less than 3% of our GDP, over 15, 16% of our GDP today, in less than 10 years. In order to grow this sector further, in order to grow the Cypriot economy further, we need people. We need to increase the productive working population on the island. We need to do it through legal immigration, by attracting talent and their families to stay on the island. And in order to do that, we need to have the necessary infrastructure to support the quality of life that will allow this talent to come and stay on the island together with their families. And for this precise reason, we are strongly supporting the initiative to reduce taxation, to reduce VAT, especially on the construction of buildings for schools, because education and schooling is one of the main aspects of quality of life, but not just for schools. Museums, sports facilities, health facilities, anything that has to do with quality of life and services, as is allowed by the European regulations that regulate VAT. We can do this today. Other countries have done it. They have seen very positive results in incentivizing this type of infrastructure. Therefore, we believe that this is the first step. It's not the only step, as you very well heard before. We need to streamline the application and permit processes, deal with the bureaucracy, but also promote e-government, have all the necessary applications online, digitize every step of the process, or at least to the extent that will allow to streamline the process. Streamline visa applications, because you need people to provide these services. And of course, have an express pathway to citizenship. Acquire citizenship after a few years. It's what other countries have been doing. We have already started this program in Cyprus, and I believe it's going to be very, very effective. And my good friend, the Minister of the Interior, comes from the private sector. I think he knows better than anyone that you need to provide the incentives for companies to come to the island, but you also need to provide the incentives for the people that are going to be working and their families to come here, but stay here because of the quality of life.
Thank you. But in a way, you avoided helping us along with this VAT issue. Because I was going to say that schools, museums are social related matters.
Yes.
And I believe that the reduction of VAT for this specific social
I thought I was clear. Maybe I wasn't clear. We strongly support the reduction of VAT and taxation on the construction of buildings that are going to be used for the purposes of education, health, sports facilities, museum, cultural centers, because we believe that this is allowed by the European legislation, and it's something we need to do. I think our mantra should be, come to the island for the money, stay for the quality of life.
Thank you. Thank you. Minister, it would be helpful if you have the statistics. How many licenses are on pending for new schools? The other day it was in the news that there is a huge school, 50 million worth of new school to be built. Are there any further licenses that are being sought?
Overall, there are 20 licenses. 8 of them are, if I remember correctly, in Limassol, 5 in Nicosia, 4 in Larnaca, and the rest of Cyprus. Out of the 20, exactly half of them are for new schools, and the other for improvements in existing schools. One has already been approved, the other are in the process. However, allow me to come back into some comments that were made. We acknowledge the fact that there is bureaucracy. We acknowledge the fact that we need to improve processes. And that's why, to tackle this issue and to, at the end of the day, increase the number of schools or the capacity of schools, first of all, we, like I mentioned before, we passed to the Council of Ministers, the incentive to increase by 25%, which is, it was greeted with very positive comments from the private sector. But also what Liudmila said, and I know she's facing, we had a couple of meetings as well, and they are facing problems of bureaucracy. I'm happy to announce that we passed a law with the help from Parliament for what we call strategic investments, and for an investment to be qualified as strategic, it needs to be 20 million or more, or create 75 new jobs. So schools that are qualify one of the two criteria can apply. It's already, this law has been already in place since 1st of April. We already received 2 applications, and according to, it's a one-stop shop. A company, an investment a project can apply if they are qualified as a strategic investment. Within 12 months, they get all the permits, and a project coordinator will be assigned that will take care of all the procedures. So the investor will know one person, and that person, which will be employed by us, will see through all the different departments. Basically, we'll have to deal with all the bureaucracy. And the promise is that within 12 months to get the permits. So this is up and running. So schools that are interested and qualify for one of these two can actually apply. We're welcoming applications.
The application will be towards your ministry.
Yes, it's in my ministry. With the VAT that you mentioned before, I agree that it's an important fact. Actually, I was given a presentation before, a private presentation, and school fees can be reduced by about 20% just because of the VAT.
Yeah.
So if investors want to pass on the added financial gain, it will be to the benefit of the end users. So I agree with Mr. Papadopoulos, and now we have to convince the Minister of Finance. That's a difficult task. And this also has to apply, I think, to affordable housing as well, which is another big issue we're facing in Cyprus, affordable housing, which is also a prohibitive factor for to attract people from abroad, talent from abroad to come and live in Cyprus and work and contribute to the increase and further fuel the increase of the ICT sector and other sectors that we have seen in previous presentations.
Thank you, Minister, and I hope this discussion will kickstart the process to achieve what we are looking for, because definitely it's a major cost. And one further question, Minister. Is there any chance that the government could allocate special zones for building schools and receive rental for the land instead of the investor having to buy an expensive land? This will help also with the congestion, because in Limassol we have a problem with the schools being all located in one area.
We'll definitely do that. We haven't revised as a government the zoning regulations in the 4 main cities for 12 years now, which is unacceptable. So actually we started the process this year for all 4 cities, and this is a big project because we have to review all kinds of developments, be it industrial, commercial, schooling. So through this process, we'll allocate new zoning for schools that will be obviously beneficial. But one thing that we are also not planning, we are in the process of, it's actually, we drafted the legislation, I can announce it, is because of the fact that we need more schools. And one of the prohibitive factors, both Alexis and Liudmila can verify that, is the cost of land to build a school. We drafted the legislation. It's in the final stages of being legally verified by the Attorney General, and then we'll submit it to the House of Parliament. That will give us the option, because up to now we didn't have that option, to provide government land for schools. So that, I think, will solve and this is, we drafted the legislation not only for universities, but for primary, secondary, and tertiary education. We drafted the legislation. I expect to be verified by the Attorney General, they promised by June, and then we immediately submit it to Parliament for ratification.
Excellent. But if I may add, is that schools is one thing. Also, museums are an important area where the government should strive to increase, because this keeps, it entertains people living in the island. And if schools and museums go together, to be able to even build in a land belonging to the government, or encouraging them for special incentives, that would be also very important. Because, to be honest, we don't have many museums, as you will see overseas.
I don't disagree with you. Museums are equally important, but government land is not in abundance. We have many requirements. For the time being, we justified the fact that we need it for schools. That's why we changed the legislations. Obviously, we have to evaluate other usage that will, because it's very restrictive in the legislation. It's very restricted in the kind of usage that we can grant government land to the private sector. So now we are making this amendment to be able to grant it for schools, and obviously we'll see other usages as well.
Thank you very much. All encouraging news. Ms. Marochkina, now that you are operational, I understand you are operational.
We are.
Good. Where is the bottleneck now? Any problems in finding schools? Any issues that are of concern?
I could say in education you have always issues, but love to grow kids, to give them proper education, technological advanced education, it's a huge motivation. And as I said before, we really started to have kind of support and motivation from the government. We had a long dialogue, but finally we were heard, and the process becomes slowly more and more smooth. And I believe new entrants to this market, they will face it even much easier and faster. What is important to emphasize, and it also has been emphasized already before, is that all schools, they require teachers. The educational staff is really important, and unfortunately, we are in huge demand in Cyprus for pedagogical staff, and we need to bring a lot of teachers from abroad. The legislation in this area has some serious gaps because, for example, to bring a good teacher and make it fast, we need to use BFU license company, but it has special burden of minimum salary of 2.5 gross salary per person per month, which sometimes is not justifiable, for example, for teachers from the kindergartens, which can work just half day. It's a quite high level of salary, which of course increase the investors' expenses, but there is no other options. If we go through the labor process, it's very lengthy, and I cannot say that it's really oriented to the educational staff. It takes too much time, and we do not have this time, because sometimes it happens that in the middle of the year you need to extra teachers or change the teachers, so the process has to be much faster. Also, it's a sad situation that all teachers from abroad, they need to pass special degree qualification to be approved locally, so they can officially operate and be licensed. This process, unfortunately, also takes quite much time, more than half a year, and has kind of bureaucratical issues as well. So I believe if it will be somehow, I don't know, more speedy or digitally approved, that some universities can be just automatically approved online, and there is no need of all these piles of documents to be physically delivered, and lots of them are lost, unfortunately, during checks. So I believe it could really improve the process and situation. Also, what I'd like to emphasize is that definitely it's very important, and most of us and government as well, we concentrate on permits, processes, but we all somehow forget about infrastructure, which could really make huge help to the investors. It's roads, utilities, assistance to the investors to organize the areas around of the school, to reduce traffic, would be real serious assistance. And as I mentioned before, all these people who come, the educators, the teachers, they definitely need constant educational, professional trainings and growth. I think that currently we are lack of this kind of assistance in the market, and we need to see in this direction, so the investors, they do not just bring and pay lots of funds for the relocated staff, but they have to also train them non-stop. I think that this is a very important part which needs to be also assisted partially from the government.
Alexis, listening to this and having the experience from other countries, do you have any best practices that you can share with us as to how we deal with the matter of the teachers, as an example? And do you also have an open dialogue with the Ministry of Education for exchanging views and ideas to improve the setup that we have here in Cyprus.
Globeducate operates schools in many countries, from India across to Europe, in many European countries, to Morocco, all the way to Canada. I can tell you that we experience the same problems across the world.
Everywhere.
So what we are facing here in Cyprus is exactly the same thing. But the problem looks bigger now in Cyprus because of the growth we see lately. So in terms of, because we have these people and businesses moving to Cyprus for financial purposes, etc. So they are interested in relocating their families. So the problem is much bigger lately. I remember that 15 years ago in Cyprus, we didn't have these issues with school places. So if it is to help the tech sector to expand even further, we need to make sure that they have places at schools. So as I was saying, the problems are the same. There is a variety of incentives or solutions to this problem, but allow me to say that I see that there are incentives in place, and I see that the government and the state in general is interested in assisting the schools. I think instead of looking for more incentives, maybe it's worth it to spend some time to find ways to speed up the whole procedure and get this advantage from the existing incentives. So it's pointless to continue the discussion all the time, more and more and more incentives. Let's focus on the ones we have, which are there, and make sure that we can get the advantages in a faster. Yeah.
It's good to hear that we are not that bad in comparison with other countries, but Mr. Papadopoulos, we should have a strategy, a 5-year plan, let's say, how do we support the educational system, which coincides with the impact that it has on increasing the section, the IT sector that is very important to the country.
Well, there is no strategy for the Cypriot economy without the tech sector. And therefore, if you want to grow the tech sector, you have to invest in people. People generate wealth, they create, they invest, they consume. It's our starting point. Any investment has to do with time and money. The time aspect, I believe that our friends on the panel have examined and talked about adequately. We need to streamline the application processes, e-government, and digitize the processes. And the money aspect has to do with monetary incentives and non-monetary incentives, coefficients and planning incentives that can be given. But coming back to your comment before, Constantinos' comment about the Minister of Finance, who I believe is doing a very good job. Last year, Cyprus had the second largest growth in the European Union of its economy. Of course, we have to be very careful in what type of incentives we give, but I do not accept the argument that when you give tax incentives, when you reduce taxes and VAT, for instance, you have a decrease in revenue. If that was true, we wouldn't have the tech sector today.
Correct.
Because tech companies have tax incentives, and they've helped grow the Cypriot economy to a degree that we didn't think possible 10 years ago. Therefore, it's not a direct relation between reduction of taxes and reduction of revenue. Sometimes it's precisely the opposite. You need to give tax incentives to create the infrastructure that will allow more investment. And if we want people to come to the island, we need to provide this infrastructure.
Thank you. Any last comments, Minister, having heard what you have heard, and especially that international companies still are looking to bring more people in. This will not stop unless we make sure we stop it. So we need to go along and support the growth.
We definitely won't stop it. But this obviously, the fact that more companies and the fact that actually we are entering the Schengen zone
Yes.
will create even more demand for housing and schools. What we can promise as an administration is what we have already stated. We are taking actions, steps towards facilitating the need for more schools to increase the capacity. And also another important issue for us is affordable housing in general and affordable housing. And in that respect, we have 7 different government plans providing extra coefficient for affordable housing. Also, we have a semi-governmental organization that is building houses for affordable housing, and we are changing zoning as well. So we are trying to provide the infrastructure as the Minister of Interior with regards to housing and education, but also in other respects, and also just to finish up, to facilitate, as I mentioned before, the process of foreign companies that want to relocate in Cyprus. We created the one-stop shop for businessmen, where we are allocating a project manager and issue any necessary permits within 12 months. So I think that will be extremely useful. It will reduce significantly red tape and bureaucracy, and will facilitate the relocation of more companies, and hence increase the ICT sector or other sectors in Cyprus in general.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. I don't think we have any questions from what I see. Done? Thank you very much. Thank you.